Sharon, and today I will tell you about my eyes. In fact, my eyes are the first thing that others notice. Basically, they cause chilling horror and fear because I am really a vulnerable and gentle person. In my story, I will tell you why I have such eyes and what is wrong with them. Believe it or not, I was born as an incredibly beautiful baby, like a doll or a picture from a children's book. I had really huge blue eyes, curly thick hair, and bow-shaped lips. No, I know there are no ugly children, but still, I did not look like a real child. I was completely unusual and unearthly. Mom says that sometimes she even had to drive other curious children away from me who were constantly trying to touch my hair, pat my cheeks, and to hold me. Attention to a child is of course good, but trust me, when there is too much of it, it turns into torment. In fact, adults also did not restrain their emotions and were often trying to touch me. This really annoyed my mom because firstly, before playing with me, no one asked permission, and secondly, of course, no one washed their hands. And so, different microbes and bacteria were getting directly on my skin. Even thinking about it is unpleasant. And once, some strange woman came up to us in the street and started talking to me without asking my mother's permission. I was 5 years old then, and I don't remember what she wanted, but I remember how my mother strictly told her to leave this child alone and to not approach me. I don't know if it was because of resentment or a bad temper, but the woman began to move away from me, and when leaving, she screamed to my mother that her child would lose her beautiful eyes and would become uglier than a scarecrow. My mom was really hurt by these words. She quickly took me home, and we never talked about it again. In the evening, my mother said that on that day in the street we saw a crazy woman and she asked me never to think about her again. But how can you not remember such an incident if it turned out to be a real blow to the fragile child's psyche? For a very long time, I'd been trying to digest what I heard and was really worried about my eyes. This had lasted for several months, but for some reason I didn't tell my parents about it, so they didn't even know about my feelings and the level of stress I'd experienced over a long period of time. But then I did forget about the incident, or rather, I just began to think about it less often. After a while, when I started going to school, all of a sudden my eyesight began to deteriorate. Doctors could not find any objective reasons for it, so they only offered supportive therapy, which slightly slowed down the process of losing my eyesight. At this rate, by the 5th grade, I already had very poor eyesight, and I had to wear glasses with 2 diopter lenses. It was a disaster for a little girl, and my classmates, of course, did not miss the opportunity to tease me. The worst thing out of what they did to make fun of me was when they were hiding my glasses. Without them, I was like a blind kitten and could see absolutely nothing. And they were laughing and saying, "Look for him, look for him." It was so humiliating. Fortunately, my parents realized that I could no longer study in a regular school, and they transferred me to a specialized school for visually impaired children. Everyone there had approximately the same eyesight as mine. That's why being surrounded by new classmates, I felt more comfortable than in the previous school. Well, and the most annoying thing is that at that time, because of my eyesight, in fact, my eyes looked not just ugly, but really terrible. It was very unpleasant for me to look at myself, and I think other people felt the same way. That's why I started wearing black, opaque glasses and began to constantly ask my parents to find doctors who could help me to return my beautiful blue eyes, or at least to not lose my eyesight completely, because this is what I was most afraid of. And a miracle happened. Once, we were told by the ophthalmologist of one of the clinics that they would be able to perform a surgery due to which my eyesight would be fully restored. But they immediately warned that for achieving the best effect, they would need to install new eyes for me, glass eyes. I immediately rushed to surf the internet and began to look at what people with glass eyes looked like. And this seemed kind of manic or something. It was even worse than how I currently looked. Because of that, I refused the surgery, deciding to let everything just run its course. Maybe now you think that I'm an idiot for thinking appearance is more important than eyesight, but this is not entirely true. The thing is that becoming a bearer of glass eyes is the same as turning into some kind of robot or cyborg for me. It's scary, unknown, and incomprehensible. Soon, when I refused the operation and came to terms with the thought that I would soon become completely blind, fate brought its own adjustments to my plans. My classmate Judy from my new school for the visually impaired children invited me to her place for her birthday party. In the midst of the event, the courier rang at the door and handed Judy a gift box, saying that it was for her. All the guests, including me, were eager to find out what was in the box and began to applaud. We were sure that there was some kind of stunning surprise for the birthday girl, and we were right. However, Judy said that it was just another gift from her stepmom, and she was already fed up with her surprises, so she said that anyone could open this box and just take what was inside it, and I turned out to be that volunteer. As soon as I lifted the lid off the box, there was heard a loud bang, and I felt pain in my eyes. I didn't see anything around at all, but I realized that things were very bad because everyone started screaming. At the hospital, I learned that inside the box there was a powerful firecracker filled with wood chips, some of which got into my eyes under powerful pressure. And the doctors also said that I needed to immediately decide whether I wanted to lose my eyes and eyesight or to agree to have the implants. There was no choice, so out of hopelessness, I agreed. On that day, I had the glass eyes installed, which I had tried my best to avoid, and a few weeks later, I started my new life. I regained excellent eyesight, like in childhood, but then began to be scared of myself after seeing my reflection in the mirror. These eyes, or rather their substitutes, were kind of lifeless and empty, so I don't know whether I should cry or be happy about them. It took me a while to get used to the reaction of others when they saw me, and in the end, I still decided to wear sunglasses more often so as not to scare anyone. Although I don't really feel comfortable wearing them, I will protect my nervous system in such a way. By the way, as for Judy's birthday and that firecracker in the gift box, the police found out who the sender of the gift was and revealed that it was Judy's stepmother. She hated her stepdaughter so much that she tried with all her might to harm her, to get rid of her. That is, Judy was supposed to be in my place. When I found out about this, I was very angry with Judy because she knew who the gift was from and knew that it could be dangerous. So why did she let me open it then? This was very disgusting and mean of her. Her stepmother was put in jail, and she will have to spend the next 4 years there. It seems to me that this is a very short period of time because, in fact, she could have killed me or someone else with her surprise. But my story does not end there either, because my mother still recognized in Judy's stepmother the same crazy woman who had prophesied many years ago that I would be deprived of my beautiful eyes. Just imagine how scary this is. But the police found out that our second meeting was a coincidence, and she had forgotten about my existence long ago because Judy had recently become her target and victim. What a poor girl. It's scary to imagine how much she had to endure living under the same roof with this crazy lady. Do you believe in curses or thoughts materialization? Have you ever had any of these things come true? You can give your answers in the comments, and do not forget to click on the thumbs up button below this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet, because there are still many interesting stories ahead. Hi, my name is North, and I am always telling the truth. It may seem to some people that such honesty is a perfect quality, but it is very difficult for a person who tells only the truth to find their place in society, and now I will explain why. A few years ago, I was not as honest as I am now, and like all teenagers, I loved lying for my own benefit. My little lies didn't harm anyone, but one day, fate played a very bad joke on me, and my deception resulted in a disaster. Once in winter, my parents asked me to light a fireplace in the living room and watch it until they returned home from work. That day, I was at home with my friend, and after we lit the fireplace, we got bored just sitting and waiting for my parents. My friend persuaded me to go for a walk for some time, and I agreed. When my parents called and asked me where I was, I lied with confidence that I was at home. I was sure that nothing could happen with the fireplace because there was that protection against sparks, but my overconfidence brought dire consequences. Coming back from our walk, I noticed fire trucks rushing towards my house. Everything inside me turned upside down when a black column of smoke rose above the crowns of maple trees right where my house was located. When I ran up to it, I saw just the burning walls and the protruding chimney of the ill-fated fireplace. Neighbors, firefighters, police, and my parents were crowding nearby. When they saw me, they started crying with happiness and rushed to hug me because they thought that I had not been able to get out. As for me, I was totally shocked and could not even say a word. Realizing that it was my fault, I was so dumbstruck that my whole body was covered with unpleasant goosebumps. Later, I told my parents everything, and then for the first time, I saw terrible disappointment in their eyes, which I will remember for my whole life. It's easy to guess that I was severely punished for negligence, but I gave myself the most severe verdict on my own. Because of the shock and the argument with my parents, something changed inside of me, and lying has become forbidden for me. I swore to myself and my parents that I would never lie again, and I kept my word. Even when I want to lie for a good reason, I could no longer do it on a subconscious level. You can't even imagine how much my life has changed after the promise I made to myself. I became a different person, and absolutely everyone around me noticed it. My parents were happy with this change and even became a bit softer with me, but my friends did not appreciate my absolute honesty. Telling only the truth, I hurt almost all my friends and classmates by revealing their secrets, so only my best friend Ashley was speaking to me. At first, my strange behavior didn't bother her, but soon everything changed. At the end of the last academic year, as always, the final and most important test in different subjects awaited us. The most difficult one of these subjects was algebra, and no one from our class had ever managed to pass it with a high score. But once, someone was able to find the answers to the test questions in advance, and all the classmates were extremely happy about it. My new principals did not allow me to cheat and copy the answers, as this amounted to deception. When the tests were checked, I was the only person in the class who had an average mark, and this raised suspicions among the teachers. On the same day, the headmaster began to demand an explanation from us, and I could not lie to him. As a result, all the tests except mine were zeroed out, and my classmates were rewriting them under the headmaster's supervision. My classmates didn't prepare for the test, and as you've already guessed, all of them, including my friend Ashley, failed it. Her reputation as a good student was ruined, and this was partly my fault. After that, my classmates declared war on me, and Ashley was on their side. I was afraid to go to school as they were trying to ruin my life in every possible way. I could not even have a normal lunch in the cafeteria because no one left me alone. I had to go outside to dine and to spend some time in peace and safety. My parents noticed that my mood changed and began to ask me what happened. I told the whole truth, and they were really outraged by the horrible behavior of my classmates. They thought that I was right and went to school to sort out the matter, which led to a huge scandal. My classmates were punished, which ruined their reputations even more, and then the atmosphere in the class became simply unbearable, and during all the school days remaining before the holidays, my classmates were humiliating me and bullying me. In autumn, I was transferred to another school as I wanted to start my life over. In the new school, no one knew about my absolute honesty, and I tried not to get involved in any class affairs at all. By the way, my class was really big, and everyone in it was divided into two warring camps, which was obvious at first glance. Despite my fears, I quickly found classmates who were willing to talk to me. But anyway, my honesty was still felt, and soon they guessed my peculiarity. My new friend Amy said that I was a godsend for their class. Amy was the monitor, and she kindly told me about a conflict in their class that had flared up a few years ago because of some trivial thing. She saw a hope for reconciliation in me because I was a new student, which meant that I had nothing to do with their conflicts. My task was to communicate with the opposing parties and then report to Amy on everything I could get to know to prevent new fights. Many people began to trust me because I was honest with everyone, but no one except Amy knew that I could not keep secrets for a long time and was aware that if I was asked about something, I would immediately tell the whole truth. So I got to know many secrets and told them to Amy despite the fact that I was asked to keep them. But at that moment, I was sure that all my efforts would finally help to achieve peace in the class. However, I was mistaken, as I became not a companion for Amy, but a weapon in the war against everyone else. Once, I found out for her one thing that finally got the conflict out of control. I learned that the parents of one of my classmates gave bribes to a physics teacher in exchange for good grades. Amy was happy to hear this because that classmate had been driving her crazy for a long time. She immediately rushed to the headmaster to tell him about it. Due to this piece of news, there arose a huge scandal which had dire consequences. The girl had to go to another school, and the teacher was immediately fired with bad recommendations. I could not believe that Amy took advantage of me in such a manner, but that still was not the worst part. After this incident, she no longer needed me. She quickly turned everyone in the class against me. Due to this, my school life became a real hell because they began mocking me all the time. My parents, being busy with work, did not notice my bad mood, and for that reason did not ask what had happened. Otherwise, they would have gone to the headmaster again to sort out the matter. However, even without this, life at school was practically unbearable. The rumor about my trick quickly spread, and even people from parallel classes stopped communicating with me. I had to have dinner outside again, and this did not really make me happy because it was terribly cold outside. In the end, I realized that I was tired of this and decided to express everything to my classmates. Before the beginning of the lesson, I approached Amy with confidence, yelled at her, and pushed her so hard that she fell and hit her head. But I didn't stop there and hurt literally everyone. I was gripped by such intense anger that I could no longer control my emotions. Unfortunately, this had negative consequences for me. I thought that my deed showed my strength, but in response, my classmates took up arms against me. Amy, along with everyone else, went to the headmaster and reported everything to him. He was not happy with my behavior and said that fights at his school were unacceptable and that I would have to leave it immediately. I was both upset and happy with the fact that I left that school. My parents realized how difficult it was for me to adapt in the class and offered me to study remotely. I liked this idea, so I agreed. Do you think it is useful to lie sometimes? Or is it better to always tell the truth? Give your answers in the comments. Do not forget to click on the thumbs up button below the video if you liked it and share it with your friends.